Is that all you've got? The voice was calm, almost amused, as Commander Jansen stood before the towering alien leader, its carapace gleaming in the dim light of Earth's ruined council chambers. The alien's pincers clicked in frustration. Behind Jansen, the holographic map of Earth's last defensive stronghold flickered and buzzed. If you're hooked already, imagine what's coming. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts on how humans would react to an alien ultimatum, and subscribe for more stories where humanity faces impossible odds. Jansen's stance was defiant, even as the alien towered over him. The Shalreth, an empire spanning galaxies, had crushed dozens of civilizations under its spiked heel. Humanity was supposed to be just another tally, a species so young and insignificant that their conquest was hardly worth the effort. But the Shalreth had made one mistake. They assumed humanity's spirit could be broken. The invasion started like all the others, a fleet of massive organic warships blotting out the sky, their arrival heralded by cities turned to rubble and seas boiled into steam. The Shalreth emissary had given humanity the same ultimatum they delivered countless times before: kneel or face extinction. At first, humanity's leaders tried diplomacy. They begged, bargained, and groveled, offering resources, technology, even subservience in exchange for survival. The Shalreth response? Laughter. They didn't just reject the offers, they broadcast humanity's desperation across the galaxy as a warning to other would-be rebels. Then came the massacres. Entire cities were swallowed in plasma storms, their populations reduced to ash. Space stations were crushed like tin cans, their debris raining down in fiery streaks. But it wasn't until the Shalreth destroyed New Geneva, Earth's seat of global unity, that humanity's resolve hardened into something unrecognizable. The turning point came when Jansen himself survived the massacre at New Geneva. He emerged from the rubble battered but alive, carrying the bloodied flag of the United Earth Federation. He addressed the fragmented world through a pirate broadcast. They think we're weak, that we'll kneel. But I say we make them regret ever thinking they could break us. Let's show them what it means to wake a sleeping giant. The broadcast ignited something primal in humanity. Across the globe, people rallied. They didn't have the Shalreth's advanced technology or centuries of conquest under their belts, but they had something the invaders couldn't comprehend: ingenuity born of desperation, and a will to fight that bordered on madness. The Shalreth initially dismissed humanity's retaliation as futile. Their fleets were impenetrable, their soldiers genetically engineered for perfection. But humanity didn't fight conventionally. They hacked into Shalreth communications, feeding them false intel. They weaponized Earth's unpredictable weather, luring invaders into storms and volcanic zones. Guerrilla fighters used urban ruins as traps, transforming entire cities into death mazes. The most devastating blow came when humanity repurposed old mining vessels into makeshift weapons. Packed with nuclear warheads, these kamikaze ships targeted Shalreth carriers. The first successful strike obliterated an entire fleet, sending a clear message. Humanity wasn't just surviving, they were fighting back. Still, the Shalreth pressed on, growing more brutal with each human victory. By the time the battle reached Earth's council chambers, the planet was barely recognizable, a scorched wasteland littered with the wreckage of human and alien machinery. But as Commander Jansen stared into the alien leader's glowing eyes, he wasn't afraid. "You thought you could scare us into submission," Jansen said, his voice carrying the weight of billions. "You thought we'd just roll over and die. But we're not like the others you've conquered. You don't scare us anymore." The alien leader hissed, its voice a blend of clicks and guttural growls. "You are a pest, an insignificant species clinging to a dying rock. This defiance only prolongs your suffering." Jansen smirked, his gaze unwavering. "If we're such pests, why do you look so nervous?" The Shalreth leader froze, its pincers twitching as it processed the implications. Deep beneath the council chambers, a seismic tremor rumbled through the earth. Jansen's smirk widened. "That's the sound of a species that doesn't know when to quit." Before the alien could respond, the chamber walls shuddered violently. Dust and debris cascaded from the ceiling as a series of underground detonations rocked the city. It wasn't just an attack. It was a trap, meticulously planned and executed by humanity's finest minds. The Shalreth invasion had walked straight into the heart of humanity's final desperate gambit. Was this the beginning of humanity's end? Or the moment an empire realized it had underestimated its most stubborn? Stick around and see how far humanity is willing to go when they finally decide enough is enough. The explosions reverberated across the ruined city, their force shaking the council chambers to its core. The alien leader stumbled, its massive frame momentarily thrown off balance. Jansen didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped closer, his boots crunching against shattered glass. The alien's glowing eyes narrowed as it steadied itself, but the unease was unmistakable. "You thought this was over," Jansen said, his tone razor-sharp. "That we'd accept our place as your newest slaves. But you don't understand what desperation does to people like us." Beneath them, the tremors intensified. The alien leader clicked its pincers furiously, signaling its guards. But the sound of footsteps never came. Jansen's grin deepened. Waiting for reinforcements. They're unavailable. Miles below, humanity's underground resistance had turned Earth's sprawling tunnel networks into the most elaborate death trap ever devised. Entire battalions of Shalreth soldiers had been lured into the labyrinth, only to find themselves sealed in, the tunnels collapsing under controlled detonations. Human ingenuity had made every inch of Earth a battlefield. Old mines were rigged to trigger sinkholes, collapsing the ground beneath Shalreth war machines. Long-abandoned subway systems became traps filled with magnetic pulse bombs, frying the invaders' advanced tech. Even the oceans weren't safe. Drones repurposed from salvaged fishing vessels targeted alien ships with precision strikes. Jansen gestured toward the crumbling chamber walls. "You came here to conquer a planet. Instead, you've found a species that refuses to die quietly." The alien leader hissed, its voice booming through the chamber. "You've doomed yourselves. This resistance is futile. Your world is already ashes." Jansen's face hardened. "Maybe. But ashes make for fertile soil." Before the Shalreth leader could respond, Jansen's comm unit crackled to life. A voice came through, sharp and urgent. "Commander, the charges are primed. We're ready to light them up." Jansen pressed a finger to his ear. "Hold the line. Wait for my signal." The alien leader tilted its head, its glowing eyes studying Jansen with a mix of curiosity and contempt. "You would sacrifice your people, your planet, for what? A fleeting victory?" Jansen stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low growl. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't about survival anymore. It's about making sure you never forget us." The alien leader lunged, its massive pincers slamming into the ground where Jansen had been standing moments before. But Jansen was already moving, darting to the side with a speed that belied his battered armor. He drew a compact plasma pistol, its barrel glowing with a faint blue light, and fired. The shot hit the alien square in the chest, staggering it, but leaving no visible damage. "You think that little toy can harm me?" the alien sneered. Jansen holstered the pistol, unfazed. "No, but I wasn't aiming to hurt you, just distract you." The alien's gaze shifted as it realized too late what was happening. Behind Jansen, a team of resistance fighters emerged from the shadows, each carrying a device humming with lethal energy. The devices weren't weapons. They were signal scramblers, designed to disrupt the Shalreth's neural link with their fleet. As the scramblers activated, the alien leader let out an ear-splitting screech, its pincers thrashing wildly. The holographic map behind it flickered and died. Across the battlefield, Shalreth soldiers froze mid-action, their movements jerky and uncoordinated as the link was severed. Jansen watched the chaos unfold, his expression unreadable. "You've spent centuries perfecting your empire, your tech, your armies, but you never stopped to think what would happen if someone pulled the plug." The alien leader roared, lunging again. This time, it was slower, its movements erratic. Jansen sidestepped with ease, turning to his team. "Fall back to the extraction point. We're done here." The resistance fighters hesitated, their eyes darting between Jansen and the furious alien. "Commander, what about—" Jansen cut them off. "That's an order." The team reluctantly retreated, leaving Jansen alone with the thrashing alien. He looked up at the collapsing ceiling, the cracks spreading like veins. He tapped his comm unit again. "Detonate the charges." From miles away, the resistance detonated their final gambit, a chain reaction of subterranean explosions that rippled across the planet. Massive Shalreth war machines toppled like dominoes, their neural links severed, their systems fried. Alien strongholds were obliterated in fiery plumes. And at the heart of it all, the council chambers collapsed, a cloud of dust and debris rising into the sky. The Shalreth thought they'd faced resistance before, but this was humanity at its most dangerous, not fighting to make a point. Because sometimes, victory isn't about winning. It's about making sure your enemies never forget what it cost them to try. The dust settled over the council chambers, or what remained of them. Jansen's last stand had taken the Shalreth leader and the symbol of their conquest with it. Across Earth's battle-scarred surface, silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the distant rumble of aftershocks from the subterranean blasts. For the first time in months, the sky was free of Shalreth warships. But humanity's victory wasn't celebrated immediately. Survivors emerged cautiously from bunkers, tunnels, and ruins. The scale of destruction was staggering. Cities lay in smoldering heaps, forests were charred black, and oceans churned with the wreckage of shattered fleets. Humanity had paid a steep price to stand defiant. Among the ruins of a once thriving metropolis, Colonel Dane of the Resistance stood atop a crumbled overpass, his face streaked with dirt and ash. His comm crackled as reports from across the planet trickled in. "Colonel, this is Omega Point. Confirming all charges detonated. Shalreth neural link severed. Their forces are in full retreat." "Copy that," Dane replied, his voice heavy. "Casualties?" There was a long pause before the reply came. "Still assessing, sir. It's bad." Dane clenched his fists, the weight of command bearing down on him. Victory had come at an unimaginable cost, and the faces of the fallen flashed in his mind. But then he looked to the horizon, where the first light of dawn broke through the smog-filled sky. For the first time in what felt like forever, it wasn't obscured by alien ships. "Colonel," another voice cut in, urgency in its tone. "We've intercepted a transmission. It's from the Shalreth fleet." Dane's brow furrowed. "Put it through." The transmission was laced with static, but the message was clear. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a call for surrender. It was a distress signal. "This is Fleet Command of the Shalreth Empire. To any surviving units. Return to base immediately. Do not engage further. The humans are unstable. Repeat. Return to base." Dane's lips curled into a grim smile. The mighty Shalreth, conquerors of worlds, were fleeing. Not because they couldn't continue fighting, but because they didn't want to. They'd underestimated humanity, and now, for the first time in their history, they feared. In orbit, the Shalreth fleet was in chaos. Their hive-mind coordination was shattered, and their once imposing warships drifted aimlessly, colliding with one another like abandoned toys. The Empire's soldiers, engineered for perfection, now struggled to operate independently, their reliance on the neural link their greatest weakness. Back on Earth, the Resistance began mobilizing. Teams salvaged alien technology, piecing together weapons and defenses from the wreckage. For years, humanity had been fighting to survive. Now they were preparing for something more, taking the fight to the stars. Dane turned to his second-in-command, a young woman named Sergeant Harper. "Get every scavenger we've got working double shifts. I want every scrap of Shalreth tech we can recover catalogued and analyzed. If they think this is over, they're dead wrong." Harper nodded. "And, Jansen?" Dane's expression darkened. "We owe him everything. But there's no guarantee he's gone. The words hung in the air like a challenge to fate. Humanity had pulled off the impossible before. Perhaps Jansen had as well. Deep beneath the rubble of the council chambers, faint sparks flickered in the darkness. Jansen's armor, scorched and battered, shielded him from the worst of the blast. He stirred, his breath ragged as he clawed his way through the debris. His comm unit buzzed weakly, but he was too weak to respond. For now, survival was his only priority. Above him, Earth's survivors began to rebuild. Resistance strongholds became centers of hope and innovation. The planet was a wasteland, but it was their wasteland, and they'd defend it to the bitter end. In the stars beyond, the Shalreth Empire reeled from its first true defeat. On distant worlds, other subjugated species heard whispers of Earth's defiance. For them, humanity's victory wasn't just a beacon of hope, it was a rallying cry. But this was far from over. The Shalreth would return, their pride and vengeance demanding retribution. And when they did, humanity would be waiting. Because for a species that had been pushed to the brink, the greatest weapon wasn't technology or numbers. It was the unyielding refusal to kneel, no matter the odds. "Let them come," Dain muttered under his breath, staring at the sky. "This time, we'll be ready." Weeks passed, and the world remained scarred, but alive. Humanity, battered and bruised, resistance hubs evolved into thriving communities of engineers, soldiers and survivors who refused to let Earth become another forgotten casualty of the Shalreth Empire. Colonel Dain oversaw operations from a sprawling base carved into the side of a mountain. Inside, holographic maps displayed Earth's surface, marked with zones of alien wreckage and areas of human resurgence. Teams were already reverse engineering Shalreth technology, finding ways to adapt their energy cores, propulsion systems, and weapons to human needs. Sergeant Harper entered the command center, her face lit with determination. "Colonel, you need to see this." Dain followed her to a secluded terminal where a group of scientists clustered. On the screen was a grainy feed from a recovered Shalreth drone. The image showed a massive structure, unmistakably alien, hidden deep in Earth's oceans. Dain leaned in, his voice low. "What am I looking at?" One of the scientists adjusted the feed, highlighting glowing symbols etched into the structure's surface. "This predates their invasion. It's not just a ship or a base. It's a vault, and whatever's inside, it's still active." Harper frowned. "Are we sure it's theirs? Could it be something older?" The scientist hesitated. "We can't be certain, but the energy readings suggest it's a source of immense power, unlike anything we've seen before. If the Shalreth didn't build it, they definitely wanted it." Dain straightened. "Assemble a team. I want that vault secured before the Shalreth regroup." Harper nodded. "And if they come looking for it?" Dain's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure they regret it." The mission was greenlit within hours. A team of divers, engineers, and elite soldiers boarded a retrofitted submarine equipped with Shalreth tech. Its sleek hull, reinforced with alien alloys, could withstand the crushing depths of the ocean. As the sub descended, the crew watched in awe as the vault came into view. It was colossal, its spires reaching upward like the skeletal remains of a long-forgotten civilization. Strange, bioluminescent creatures darted around it, their movements eerily synchronized, as if guarding the structure. Inside the control room, Harper monitored the scans. "This thing's alive," she whispered, her voice filled with both wonder and dread. The pilot slowed the sub's approach, guiding it toward an entry point illuminated by faint blue lights. The team disembarked, their suits bristling with sensors and weapons. As they moved through the vault, the atmosphere grew oppressive. The walls pulsed faintly, as if responding to their presence. Symbols, similar to those on the Shalreth ships, glowed faintly, casting shifting shadows. Harper's voice came through the comms. "We're picking up something. A signal. It's weak, but it's there. Proceed with caution." The signal led them to a central chamber, where a pedestal stood bathed in an eerie light. On it rested a crystalline sphere, its surface swirling with patterns of energy. One of the engineers approached, scanning it cautiously. This isn't just a power source, it's a database. A record of whoever built this place. Maybe even the Shalrith's origins. Before they could analyze further, a deafening hum filled the chamber. The walls began to shift, and the symbols blazed with light. Harper's voice came through, panicked. "We've got incoming. Something's waking up." The team braced themselves as the vault came alive. Mechanical constructs, sleek and predatory, emerged from hidden compartments in the walls. Their movements were swift and deliberate, their forms unlike anything the team had encountered. "Fall back!" the squad leader shouted, firing at the advancing machines. But the constructs adapted quickly, their forms rippling and hardening against the weapon's impact. In the chaos, the engineer clutched the crystalline sphere. "We can't leave without this. It's the key to everything." Harper's voice cut through the comms. "Then protect it at all costs. We're sending reinforcements, but you're on your own for now." The team fought their way back to the sub, the constructs in relentless pursuit. As the sub's hatch sealed, the creatures swarmed, battering the hull with alarming force. "Engage propulsion!" the pilot yelled. "Get us out of here!" The sub surged upward, the constructs trailing it until the pressure of the depths crushed them. But the damage was done. The sub's systems flickered, and alarms blared. "Hold it together!" Harper's voice was a lifeline, steady and commanding. As the sub breached the surface, the crew exhaled in collective relief. But the victory was short-lived. Above them, a Shalrith warship hovered, its silhouette menacing against the stormy sky. Dane's voice crackled over the comms. "You've got company. Get that sphere to base." They'd come back, for the vault, for the sphere, and for revenge. The sub's engine screamed as it pushed toward the coastline, seawater foaming in its wake. Inside, the crew scrambled to keep the vessel functional, patching leaks and rerouting power around damaged systems. The crystalline sphere pulsed faintly, emitting rhythmic waves of energy that reverberated through the hull. "Whatever this thing is," the engineer muttered, "it's broadcasting something. It's like a beacon." "Great," Harper snapped over the comms from the mountain base. "The one thing we don't need is a homing signal for an alien empire." Above the sub, the Shalrith warship unleashed a squadron of sleek drones, their movements synchronized and predatory. They dived toward the water, sending plumes of spray skyward as they began their pursuit. Inside the sub, the pilot's knuckles whitened on the controls. "They're closing fast. I need options." "Hold steady," the squad leader barked. "Weapons systems online?" "Barely. We've got 2 functional torpedoes and a laser turret running at 50% capacity." "Make them count," the leader said grimly. The sub banked hard, narrowly avoiding a volley of plasma fire from the drones. The gunner locked onto the nearest drone and fired, the laser turret searing through the water. One drone exploded in a burst of light and metal, but the others swarmed closer, their movements coordinated and unrelenting. As the battle raged, Harper's voice cut through the chaos. "Reinforcements are inbound. Just get to the rendezvous point." The sub-pilot gritted his teeth. "Easier said than done." Meanwhile, in the mountain base, Dane paced before a tactical display. His team had been monitoring the sphere's signals, and the data was troubling. "This isn't just a beacon," one of the analysts said. "It's a message, a call to something, or someone." Dane's eyes narrowed. "Can you decipher it?" "We're trying, but it's complex. It's not just Shalrith. It's layered, like it's meant to reach multiple species." "Or wake something up," Dane muttered. He turned to Harper. "We can't let the Shalrith take that sphere no matter what. Prepare the base for a full-scale assault." On the water, the sub was running out of time. The drones had disabled its main thrusters, and the vessel now limped toward shore. Inside, the crew worked frantically to keep it afloat, sealing breaches and redirecting power. "Brace for impact," the pilot yelled as another drone fired, its plasma bolt striking the rear of the sub. The explosion rocked the vessel, sending crew members sprawling. The squad leader grabbed the engineer, pulling him toward the escape hatch. "We're not making it back in this thing. Take the sphere and go." The engineer hesitated, clutching the pulsating artifact. "If we lose this, we won't," the leader snapped. "But if we stay here, none of us make it." Reluctantly, the engineer climbed into the escape pod, the sphere cradled in his arms. Two others joined him, while the rest of the crew stayed behind, determined to buy them time. The pod ejected, plunging into the water and streaking toward the shore. The sub, now a sitting duck, turned to face the oncoming drones. The crew fired their remaining torpedoes, taking out two more attackers before the warship above unleashed a devastating plasma beam. The explosion lit up the night, a fiery blossom against the storm-darkened sky. The pod rocked violently in the waves, but it held together, finally reaching the shallows. On the beach, resistance fighters waited, their weapons trained on the horizon. Harper was among them, her expression hard but resolute. As the pod opened, she rushed forward, helping the engineer out. "Do you have it?" she demanded. He held up the sphere, its glow reflecting in her eyes. "Yeah, but they're not going to stop coming for it." "They'll have to go through us first," Harper said. Above them, the Shalreth warship descended, its spotlights cutting through the darkness. Troop carriers spilled from its hull, their engines shrieking as they neared the ground. Harper activated her comm. "Colonel, we've got company." Dane's voice was steady. "Hold them off as long as you can. Reinforcements are en route." The beach erupted into chaos as the first wave of Shalreth soldiers landed. These were different from the hive mind drones, larger, more heavily armed, and disturbingly organic in appearance. Their movements were fluid, yet deliberate, their black armor glinting in the light of their weapons. "Hold the line!" Harper shouted, firing her rifle at the advancing aliens. Around her, resistance fighters fought with grim determination, their makeshift weapons no match for the Shalreth's advanced arsenal. But humanity had something the Shalreth lacked: desperation and a refusal to surrender. Traps rigged along the beach erupted in fire and shrapnel, cutting down entire squads. Fighters in exosuits, cobbled together from salvaged alien tech, engaged the Shalreth in brutal melee combat. Amid the chaos, the sphere began to glow more intensely. The engineer, crouched behind cover, stared at it in alarm. "It's doing something! I think it's responding to the battle!" The light from the sphere grew blinding, and a deep, resonant hum filled the air. The fighting stopped as both sides turned to stare. The Shalreth warship above faltered, its engines sputtering, and then impossibly it began to descend. Not in attack, but as if being pulled. Harper shielded her eyes, shouting over the comm. "Colonel, the sphere—" Before she could finish, the sphere released a shockwave of energy. The beach lit up in a dazzling cascade of light, and the Shalreth soldiers froze in place. Their bodies twitched, then collapsed, as if their neural links had been severed. The warship plummeted into the ocean, sending a tidal wave crashing onto the shore. When the waters receded, only silence remained. Harper lowered her weapon, staring at the sphere in awe. What just happened?" The engineer's voice was shaky. It turned their own tech against them. But I think this was just the beginning." In the distance, reinforcements arrived, their vehicles skidding to a halt on the wet sand. Dane stepped out, his eyes scanning the scene. "Report," he demanded. Harper handed him the sphere. "It saved us, but it's not just a weapon, it's something much bigger." Dane stared at the glowing artifact, its patterns shifting like a living thing. "Bigger how?" The engineer looked up, his face pale. "I think it's a signal to whoever built it, and they're on their way." The air around the sphere crackled with residual energy, the sound eerie against the newfound silence of the battlefield. Resistance fighters stood motionless, their weapons slack in their hands, as the weight of the engineer's words settled over them. Harper broke the spell. "We need to move. If this thing is calling something, we don't want to be here when it arrives." Dane nodded sharply. "Agreed. Secure the sphere and fall back to the mountain base. I want everyone mobilized and ready for evac if needed. Resistance fighters scrambled into action, loading the sphere into a reinforced transport vehicle. Dane's expression was grim as he watched it disappear into the convoy. He turned to Harper. You saw what it did. If it can neutralize them that easily, it's worth the risk to study it further. Harper met his gaze. You think we'll have time for that? Dane didn't answer. As the convoy rumbled inland, the remnants of the Shalreth warship smoldered in the ocean behind them, its once imposing presence reduced to charred wreckage. But the calm didn't last. The sky began to darken, unnaturally so, as if the light itself were being drained. A low, resonant hum spread across the landscape, vibrating in the bones of everyone who heard it. Harper's knuckles tightened on the transport's dashboard. Tell me that's not what I think it is. The engineer seated behind her checked his instruments. The sphere, it's reacting to something. Whatever it called, it's coming. The convoy accelerated, engines straining as they climbed the mountain pass. In the rearview mirror, Harper caught a glimpse of the horizon. There, cutting through the blackened sky, was a rift, a jagged tear in reality itself, glowing with an otherworldly light. From within emerged massive, shifting forms, their shapes indistinct, but radiating a palpable sense of power. The engineer whispered, "It's them, the sphere's creators." The forms coalesced into towering figures, their appearances fluid and surreal. They seemed to defy physical laws, their limbs stretching and reforming as they moved. The Shalreth warship debris vanished beneath their attention, disassembled molecule by molecule until nothing remained. Harper's voice cut through the rising panic. "Eyes forward! Get us to the base now!" The convoy surged ahead, reaching the fortified mountain entrance as the alien entities descended. The gates slammed shut behind them, and the base erupted into controlled chaos as personnel prepared for the worst. Dane strode into the command center, barking orders. "Defensive grid online. I want all weapon systems powered up and targeting solutions on those things." "Sir, if they're what we think they are, our weapons won't make a dent," one of the techs warned. "We're not going down without a fight," Dane shot back. The sphere, now housed in a reinforced... The command center's main screen flickered, and an alien figure appeared. One of the towering beings outside, its face a shifting mass of light and shadow. Its voice resonated directly in their minds, bypassing the need for language. "You wield what was never meant for you." Dane stepped forward, his jaw set. "We didn't ask for this war. The Shalreth brought it to us." The entity's form flickered, its tone impassive. "And yet, you have taken the beacon. Its power is not for those of flesh and bone." Harper's fists clenched. "So what? We're just supposed to hand it over and hope you don't kill us all?" "Your survival depends on your choice," the entity replied. "The beacon is a key. Its misuse has awakened forces beyond your comprehension. Relinquish it, and we will restore balance. Keep it, and face annihilation." A tense silence filled the room. Dane's mind raced. The sphere had saved them once. But at what cost? Could humanity afford to give up its only edge, or was the risk of defiance too great? He turned to the engineer. "What happens if we destroy it?" The engineer shook his head. "I don't know. It's tied to their technology. It could sever their connection, or it could trigger something catastrophic." Harper stepped forward. "We can't trust them. They're giving us an ultimatum, not a choice." The entity spoke again, its voice cold. "Decide." The rift widens. Outside, the rift began to expand, its edges crackling with energy. The alien forms moved closer, their presence suffocating. Alarms blared through the base as seismic tremors shook the ground. Dane closed his eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The lives of billions hung in the balance, and there was no clear path forward. Finally, he opened his eyes. "Prepare the sphere for transport. We're taking it to the core of the rift." Harper's eyes widened. "What? You can't be serious. It's the only way, Dane said. If we give it to them, we lose any leverage we have. If we destroy it, we risk triggering something worse. But if we take it to the source, maybe we can force a stalemate. The engineer hesitated. That's a gamble, Colonel. It's better than surrender, Dane replied. The team moved quickly, loading the sphere onto a specialized transport. Harper climbed into the cockpit, her jaw tight. If this goes south, it's on you. Dane nodded. I'll take the blame. Now go. As the transport sped toward the rift, the aliens turned their attention to it. The beings began to converge, their forms rippling with energy, but they didn't attack. The sphere pulsed faster, its light now synchronized with the rift's chaotic energy. The engineer's voice crackled over the comms. Whatever happens, we're about to find out if humanity's defiance was worth it. The transport reached the edge of the rift. Harper gripped the controls, her breath shallow. What now? The sphere emitted a final, blinding pulse, and the rift responded in kind, its energy folding inward. Time seemed to pause as light and shadow collided. And then, everything went white. When the light faded, Harper blinked hard, her vision swimming with afterimages. The transport systems were fried, sparks dancing across the dashboard. Around her, the air felt unnaturally still, heavy, as if holding its breath. The rift was gone. Harper, report! Dane's voice crackled weakly over the comms, distorted but alive. She coughed, clearing her throat. We're intact. The rift closed, but something feels off. The alien entities were no longer visible, but the sky retained an eerie, unnatural hue. The ground around the transport had transformed. The terrain was no longer familiar Earth, but something otherworldly. Smooth, blackened surfaces with glowing veins of light coursing through them, pulsating in time with an unseen rhythm. She stepped out of the transport, weapon drawn, scanning her surroundings. Behind her, the sphere sat silent in its containment cradle, no longer pulsing or emitting light. Dane, she said cautiously. I think we're somewhere else. Back at the mountain base, the command center was in chaos. The seismic activity had stopped, and the skies had cleared, but the monitors showed nothing where the rift had been. The alien entities were gone, and with them, the transport carrying Harper and the sphere. Harper! Dane shouted into the comms again, his voice tinged with desperation. Static was the only reply. Sir, one of the techs said, her voice trembling. We're detecting a massive energy shift. But it's not here. It's elsewhere. Dane stared at the blank monitors, his jaw clenched. Elsewhere where? I don't know, she muttered, scanning for any sign of life. The answer came abruptly. A figure emerged from the shimmering air, its form humanoid but distinctly alien. Its skin was a smooth, iridescent surface that shifted colors with its movements, and its eyes glowed with an intense, unblinking light. It carried no visible weapon, but its presence was overwhelming. Harper raised her rifle, heart pounding. Stay back! The being tilted its head as if curious. Its voice came not from its mouth but directly into her mind, calm yet resonant. You are bold to bring the key here. Didn't exactly have a choice, Harper said, keeping her weapon steady. Who are you? The being stepped closer, ignoring her warning. We are the custodians of the beacon. You have disrupted the balance by claiming what is not yours. Harper gritted her teeth. You mean the sphere? Your Shalrith friends weren't exactly using it responsibly. You expect us to just sit back and let them destroy us? The custodian's glow dimmed slightly, as if considering her words. The Shalrith are not our allies. They are but another species who failed to comprehend the beacon's purpose. Like you, they sought to wield its power for conquest. Their hubris led to their fall. Then why threaten us? Harper demanded. If they were in the wrong, why punish us for defending ourselves? The custodian's gaze bore into her, and the air around her grew colder. The beacon is not a weapon. It is a key, A gateway. Its misuse risks awakening forces far beyond even our control. By bringing it here, you have placed yourself at the edge of existence. Great, Harper muttered. So what happens now? The custodian raised a hand, and the sphere began to glow faintly. Your kind's resilience is remarkable, but you have brought yourselves to the precipice of annihilation. To survive, you must prove your worth. Before Harper could respond, the ground beneath her shifted. The glowing veins of light expanded, forming intricate patterns that radiated outward. The sphere pulsed once, and the world around her began to change. She found herself standing in what looked like a massive arena, its walls formed of the same black, crystalline material. Above her, the sky was a swirling vortex of light and shadow. Across the arena, more figures appeared, other beings, each as alien and imposing as the custodian. The custodian's voice echoed in her mind. The trial begins. What trial? Harper shouted, spinning in place as the arena seemed to pulse with energy. The beacon has chosen you as its wielder. If you wish to retain its power and your existence, you must prove your species is worthy of such responsibility. A deep rumble shook the arena, and monstrous forms began to emerge from the shadows. They were massive, multi-limbed creatures with glowing eyes and razor-sharp appendages, their movements unnervingly fluid. Harper's grip tightened on her rifle. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. The custodian's voice was calm, almost indifferent. Survive. Only then will we consider your plea. As the first creature lunged, Harper's instincts took over. She rolled to the side, firing a burst of plasma rounds into its torso. The creature screeched but didn't falter, its glowing eyes locking onto her as it charged again. Over the comms, a faint voice crackled through. Harper? Harper, are you there? Dane, she shouted, dodging another attack. I'm in some kind of alien deathmatch. Get me out of here. We're tracking your signal, but you're not in our dimension anymore, Dane replied. Hold tight. We're working on a way to bring you back. Yeah, sure. I'll just hold tight while I'm being torn apart, Harper snapped, firing another round. The arena erupted into chaos as more creatures appeared, each more terrifying than the last. Harper's pulse pounded in her ears as she fought to stay alive, every shot and movement driven by sheer determination. Above her, the custodians watched silently, their glowing eyes unblinking. Harper was exhausted, her body aching from the constant barrage of attacks. Every time she felled one of the monstrous creatures, another seemed to materialize in its place. The arena pulsed with energy, the glowing veins on the ground brightening and dimming as if responding to her struggle. She couldn't afford to think about how much longer she could last. She was running low on ammunition, her rifle overheating with each desperate shot. The creatures seemed to sense her dwindling strength, circling her with predatory intent. Dane! She yelled into the comms, dodging a swipe from a razor-limbed beast. If you've got a plan, now's the time! Back at the mountain base, Dane paced furiously as techs scrambled to make sense of the data. The rift had left behind faint traces of energy, and they were working to amplify the signal. If we can stabilize the residual energy signature, we might be able to reopen the rift temporarily. Might? Dane snapped, slamming his hand on the console. That's not good enough! The tech flinched but pressed on. It's all we've got, sir. If we overshoot, we could collapse the entire system, and we might lose her for good. Dane clenched his fists, his mind racing. Harper was more than just a soldier to him. She was the heart of their resistance, a symbol of humanity's refusal to bow. Losing her wasn't an option. Do it, he said finally. Whatever it takes, bring her back. In the arena, Harper was fighting on pure adrenaline. She'd switched to her sidearm, firing with precision at the closest threats. The creatures were relentless, their shrieks echoing through the alien landscape. Above her, the custodians watched in silence, their iridescent forms flickering like flames in the wind. What's the point of this? She shouted, her voice hoarse. You want me to die, proving a point? The custodian she'd first encountered spoke again, its voice calm but firm. This is no mere test of survival. It is a measure of your will, your ingenuity, and your capacity for sacrifice. Only those who understand the burden of power may wield it. Yeah, well, I didn't ask for this burden, Harper snapped, firing at a creature lunging toward her. The custodian's glow dimmed slightly. None who are worthy ever do. Suddenly, the ground beneath her shifted violently, sending her sprawling. The creatures stopped their attack, retreating to the edges of the arena as the glowing veins on the ground converged beneath her. The light intensified, blinding her for a moment. When her vision cleared, she saw a new figure standing before her. It wasn't a custodian or one of the monstrous creatures. It was human. Harper froze, her breath catching in her throat. The man looked familiar, painfully so. His uniform was tattered, his face lined with weariness. "Captain Lewis?" she whispered, lowering her weapon. The man smiled faintly. "Hello, Harper. It's been a while." Her mind reeled. Captain Lewis had been her commanding officer during the early days of the Shalrith invasion. He'd led a desperate mission to destroy one of their main outposts, sacrificing himself to give his team a chance to escape. He'd died a hero, or so she'd thought. "But you're dead," she stammered. "Not quite," he said, his voice tinged with sorrow. "I ended up here like you. The custodians call it the threshold. It's a place between realities, where the worth of a species is decided." Harper's grip tightened on her weapon. "Decided by who? Them?" She gestured toward the custodians watching from above. Lewis nodded. "They're guardians, Harper. Protectors of something far greater than we can imagine. The sphere. It's a fragment of that power. They've been testing civilizations for eons, seeing who can handle it without destroying themselves or the universe. And you? You've been stuck here all this time?" Lewis's expression darkened. "I failed my trial. I wasn't enough." He stepped closer, his eyes locking onto hers. "But you can succeed, Harper. You're stronger than I ever was." Her chest tightened. "What happens if I don't?" Lewis hesitated, then gestured to the glowing veins beneath their feet. "This place, this arena, it's alive. It's connected to the fabric of existence itself. If you fail, it's not just you. Earth, humanity, everything we know. It all ends." Harper's pulse pounded in her ears. The weight of his words pressed down on her like a physical force. She glanced at the custodians, their glowing eyes unyielding, and then back at Lewis. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why am I the one who has to carry this?" Lewis smiled faintly. "Because you're the only one who can." The ground shook again, the arena shifting as more creatures emerged from the shadows. Lewis stepped back, his form flickering. "Harper," he said, his voice echoing faintly. "This is your fight now. Show them what humanity is made of." Before she could respond, he vanished, leaving her alone once more. The creatures began their advance, more numerous and ferocious than before. Harper took a deep breath, raising her weapon. The odds were impossible, but giving up wasn't an option. "Come on," she muttered, her eyes blazing with determination. "Let's finish this." Above her, the custodians exchanged a silent, unreadable glance as the trial reached its final stage. The arena erupted into chaos. The ground trembled beneath Harper's feet as the creatures, relentless and more numerous than ever, surged forward. Their eyes glowed with a predatory hunger, and their grotesque forms seemed to shift and warp with each step they took. One of the creatures lunged first, its massive jaws snapping shut with terrifying force. Harper rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding its strike. She fired at its exposed flank, the blast hitting its hide with a dull thud. The creature let out a horrific screech but didn't stop its charge. More creatures closed in from every direction. Harper was surrounded, outnumbered, and outmatched. But she wouldn't back down. Each shot was a desperate attempt to stave off the inevitable. Each movement was fueled by the burning realization that this wasn't just a fight for her survival, but for the future of humanity, for the future of everything she loved. Come on," Harper muttered, her heart pounding in her chest as she fired again. the energy from her sidearm lighting up the darkened arena. The creature in front of her staggered, its glowing eyes dulling momentarily, but it quickly regained its footing. A burst of energy from her rifle struck the creature's chest, sending it crashing to the ground. It didn't rise again, but Harper knew that wasn't enough. She had to keep fighting. From the corner of her eye, she saw another creature, larger than the rest, charging toward her. Its limbs were elongated, its eyes a pulsating yellow. The creature's form shifted and writhed as it moved, its grotesque body a blur of motion. Harper dove to the side, narrowly avoiding its massive claws. She scrambled to her feet, her eyes locked onto the beast as it swiped at the air. She needed a plan. The weapons she had wouldn't be enough to stop this thing. Then, the voice of the custodian echoed in her mind again. You must use the key. The key. The sphere. It was the only thing left. The sphere was supposed to be more than just a beacon. It had to hold the power to stop these creatures, to protect humanity from whatever came next. She had no idea how, but she couldn't waste time thinking. Harper turned, her eyes scanning the battlefield. The sphere lay dormant in the center of the arena, untouched since her arrival. She dashed toward it, ignoring the chaos around her. Every step felt like a challenge, the weight of the arena's energy pressing down on her. The creature with the pulsating yellow eyes was closing in again, its limbs stretched impossibly long. Harper sprinted faster, the hairs on the back of her neck standing up as she felt the beast's breath on her heels. She dove for the sphere, grabbing it just as the creature lunged at her. Time slowed as the massive claws reached for her, but Harper's fingers closed around the sphere, and a surge of energy pulsed through her body. The sphere came alive in her hands, its surface glowing with an ethereal light. She gasped, the raw power coursing through her. The world around her seemed to shift, the arena warping and flickering as the sphere's energy overwhelmed the environment. The creature's claws halted just inches from her, its form flickering like a hologram. The moment the claws touched the energy field surrounding her, the beast let out an unearthly scream as it began to disintegrate into shimmering particles. The others followed suit, their forms dissolving into the air as if they were nothing more than illusions. Harper stood alone in the center of the arena, her heart still racing, the sphere pulsing gently in her hands. The fight was over, but for how long? Above her, the custodians observed in silence. Their forms shifted in the light, and then, without warning, the atmosphere around her changed. The oppressive weight lifted, and the arena began to fade, the alien landscape slowly dissolving into the dark void that had enveloped her moments ago. Harper's breath caught in her throat. She wasn't alone anymore. "Harper," a familiar voice said, soft yet urgent. She looked up to see Dane's form materializing before her, his face etched with worry. Behind him, the command center and the mountain base appeared, fading in and out of focus as the two realities converged. "You made it," Dane said, his voice filled with a mix of relief and awe. I don't know how, but you made it." Harper glanced at the sphere, which was still glowing brightly in her hands. "I used it," she said simply. "It was the only way." Dane's eyes widened as he looked from the sphere to her. "The key, the beacon, you wielded it." Harper nodded. "It was the only way to stop them. The creatures, the arena, it was all connected. They were testing humanity, testing me. And I passed." The custodian's voice echoed once more, now resonating within Harper's mind. "You have proven worthy, Harper of Earth. The power of the beacon is yours, but its use will come at a price. The balance you have upset cannot be easily mended. Prepare yourself." Harper's eyes darkened as the custodian's words lingered in her mind. "What do you mean, prepare yourself?" she demanded. The sphere in her hands pulsed once, its light dimming, as if it was responding to her unease. Dane, noticing the shift, stepped closer. "What's happening?" he asked, his tone urgent. "I don't know," Harper said, her heart racing again. But whatever it is, we're not out of the woods yet. The voice of the custodian filled her mind one last time. The true test begins now. You have won the right to wield the power of the beacon, but with it comes a new burden. What you have begun, you must finish. What you have started, you must see through. Harper gritted her teeth, her hands tightening around the sphere. What the hell is this all about? She demanded. I don't even understand what's happening. The world around her flickered again, the space between realities warping and shifting like a storm on the horizon. And then, it hit her. The true cost of her victory, had it truly been a victory at all? Or was this just the beginning of something far darker, far more dangerous than she could ever imagine? The air was still, unnaturally so, as Harper stood frozen, the sphere pulsing softly in her hands. The voice of the custodian continued to reverberate in her mind, but now there was a strange sense of finality to it. She felt it, a weight, heavy and oppressive, settling over her shoulders. This was not just an alien trial, not just a fight for survival. This was a test of something deeper, something that would alter the course of history forever. Dane stepped forward, his expression grave but resolute. Harper, what did the custodian mean? She shook her head slowly, her gaze fixed on the glowing sphere. I don't know, she whispered, but it feels like we're at the center of something far bigger than us. The sphere hummed, its light flickering, casting shadows across their faces. It was no longer just a tool. It was a beacon, a symbol of everything humanity had faced and overcome. But it was also a reminder of the cost of their victory. The creatures were gone, but the custodian's warning still echoed through Harper's mind. What you have started, you must see through. Suddenly, the sphere flared with an intense light, blinding them both. Harper staggered back, instinctively holding the sphere closer to her chest. The light intensified until it was blinding, and then, just as quickly as it had come, it faded, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. Harper opened her eyes and found herself standing alone in a vast, empty space. There were no more creatures, no more battle cries, just the endless void stretching out before her. This is it, she realized. This is the true test. She took a step forward, the weight of her decision sinking in. The custodian had granted her power. Power to end the threat. Power to reshape the future. But what would she do with it now? Harper, Dane's voice echoed softly, as if from miles away. You're not alone in this. She closed her eyes, focusing on the sphere once more. The light it emitted flickered, growing brighter as it pulsed with an otherworldly energy. Harper felt the pull of something larger than herself, a connection to every battle fought, every sacrifice made, and every person who had ever stood against the darkness. This is not just my fight, she thought. This is for all of us. With newfound resolve, she raised the sphere high, feeling its power surge through her like a river of light. The darkness of the void began to recede, and in its place, a new world began to take shape. The custodian's voice returned, now filled with respect and finality. You have done it, Harper of Earth. You have chosen to rewrite the future. The test is over. Humanity has passed. The void vanished, replaced by a vibrant, thriving world. The sky was clear, the air full of life, and the ground beneath her feet felt firm and steady. The creatures were gone. The threat was over. She lowered the sphere, her fingers trembling slightly as she gazed at it one last time. The power it held had been the key to humanity's survival, but it wasn't just a weapon. It was a symbol, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, humanity had the strength to rise, to fight, and to endure. Harper smiled softly, the weight in her chest lifting. She wasn't just a soldier, and this wasn't just a victory. It was a new beginning. The future was theirs to shape, and she was ready. As the scene faded into the bright horizon, a final message echoed in her mind, a call to those who would come after her. The power to shape the future is within you. Stand strong, stand together. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more epic tales of heroism, sacrifice, and the triumph of the human spirit. Share your thoughts below and let us know what you think the future holds. Thanks for watching, and until next time.